Alright, hello and welcome back to the channel. Today is the day that the showcase video is coming out. So I'll be showing off things that I want you to vote on for the Anthem, for my Anthem playthrough, my Borderlands playthrough, and my Stardew playthrough. One thing to say before I start is that this is the sixth time I've sat down to record this video in the past 24 hours. So if there's anything that's wrong with the video, like the audio I know is a little bit off because I've been looking through the footage. The audio is off and the games itself to the game audio is off from the game visual for some reason, and I don't know what's going on with that, but that's just gonna gonna have to be how it is for this video, just because there's nothing I can really do about that right now, but I'll be looking in that for the next videos, so don't worry about that. I think it shows up more in the Borderlands portion and hopefully it doesn't pop up in this part, but I'll be getting straight into it right now. A thing about Anthem is there will be more cuts than usual. Like, these videos will probably be like 30 minutes of each recording session will probably be just loading screens being cut out, just because the way that this game is made, it's meant to be an open world game, and it really is, but a lot of the time it's spent loading, which is kind of one of the game's downfalls. So I'll be cutting out a lot of the loading screens. So I'll bring you back when we get to the first javelin, which are the suits that you fly around in that are kind of like Iron Man. I'll start off with the Ranger, which is the one that most people have seen at this point from the promotion over on the Instagram. Alright, so here you are with the Ranger. It is completely maxed out to legendary status. Not exactly how I want it to be, just because getting the components that I want to use, which are like modifiers to make the javelin more attuned to what you specifically want it to be used for. I don't have those exactly because you get more legendary and high tier loot the better your javelin suit is. So I focused on getting that done first before I started trying to get more weapons and attachments that I wanted. But I'll be going into that in more detail when I do the actual playthrough. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and load up into the free play mode and fly around and try and find some enemies to show off the abilities of the Ranger javelin suit. Alright, so the Ranger is like the most similar thing to an Iron Man suit. It's essentially like if you gave the US Army a suit and then you gave them the ability to outfit it with whatever they wanted, this is probably what they would come up with. So when I find some enemies, I'll go ahead and show off the items that I have equipped now. But do keep in mind that when I do the actual game playthrough, it won't be the exact same items, but they're just potential items to get when I do the game playthrough. Alright, so now that I've found some enemies, I'll go ahead and show off some of the abilities. A cool thing about this game is that it does keep in mind a lot of things that some games will just say, oh, it just has a cooling system. Or it just works like that, basically. So like with this one, you have jets all over your suit to get you to fly around, but that also generates heat for your suit, so you cannot hover all of the time, and you do have to land sometimes. But the game also took in mind the effects of water as a cooling system and stuff like that, so that's also a major part of this game. But with my ranger, I carry a frost grenade as one of the main ability that I use, just because it's freezes enemies and holds them in place, making them easier to kill, as well as, I mean, once you well, I mean, that's really it. Just freezes them and holds them in place. As well as that, my support item is usually that muster point, which is a shield from all directions, so you can stand inside, reload, and don't have to worry about taking damage. The ultimate ability is this homing rocket barrage, which is actually probably the flash. Well, I think it's the most useful of them all because it allows you to either focus on a lot of enemies at once, or you can target one enemy with the full barrage. Another good thing about the ranger itself is that its combo ability allows for extra damage to be done. So it's very simple, but it can be very powerful if you're built to prime enemies, which I do try to do. And I'll explain that combo thing right now, actually. So what you do is, like I said, I have this frost grenade which freezes enemies. I can then go up and melee it, which will cause it to detonate. So the prime is the frost effect. The detonate is any ability that is marked with a little, I guess it's like a star, almost, and that will detonate it, causing for the ranger to deal extra damage. And with the way that mine is built now, one of either the melee attack or either the melee attack or the grenade causes for an explosion of frost once detonated, which is very powerful to freeze out enemy. Freeze an enemy, basically platoon, like the whole enemies will be stopped in the tracks. So, also these poison darts, I think I mentioned those, but I don't use them as much just because I don't find them as useful. They're kind of just there to fill out the kit. The ranger was the one that I enjoyed playing. It's like my second, well, I mean, it's the second favorite one just because of its health, but otherwise I didn't really play it much just because it seemed very boring and basic. And well, I died there. Didn't play it much though, and with that I think that's where I'll end the ranger showcase, because I don't have much more to say about it. I really don't have anything else to say about it, so I'll bring you back when I'm on the storm. Alright, so the storm is by far the least used of all of the javelin that I have, just because it is very frail and that it can't take much damage. But what it lacks in health, it makes up for in its ability strength, which is we should say that it's a glass cannon, basically. High damage and abilities, but low damage or low sustainability in a fight one-on-one or one-on-many, because there's really no one-on-one fights in this game. So once I'm in the game, I'll go ahead and bring you back. Alright, so we're back in here with the storm. It is very frail. I used the ice skating entrance one because I think it was pretty cool, just how much has to go into designing that into a game, but also just because it fits the storm, my thoughts on the storm of being like very light, very delicate, precise with its attacks. The storm, like I said before, doesn't have much in the way of health, but it does keep its damage high. So when I find some enemies, I'll bring you back to show off that. Alright, so didn't take as long as I thought it would. A cool thing about the storm also is that when it dodges, it is actually completely untouchable compared to compared to any other dodge actually. Forgot I had a sniper rifle. Shouldn't have been that close. I carry a sniper rifle and a machine pistol with my storm. The sniper rifle because I usually play it at range. Machine pistol just in case I have to get up close. So you may have noticed there that when I detonated the frozen enemy, it spread the frost to the others nearby, which is the combo effect for the storm. It spreads the primed effect. So if it's electrocuted, then it'll shock the rest of the enemies and have them. I think it stuns a little bit. I'm not exactly sure about that one, but you know the frost will freeze enemies around it. Fire will overheated. The fire will light everything else on fire also. So it's similar to how my ranger was built, but not exactly because the ranger had to have a specific item for that, while the storm just does it. So the storm is really good at priming a lot of enemies and then detonating. Someone else here too, so maybe there'll be some combo set up with that. Another thing, detonating or comboing enemies generates more for your ultimate bar. So the storm, I generally have the old bar filled pretty fast just because of how like its abilities will always combo if you use it in the right order. Just freezing. So I have this frost ray basically, and then I have a thunderbolt. I think a major part about all of my builds, except for the Colossus, which I'll show next, is that each one will have some type of freezing ability. Missing with that one, but the ultimate for this one is basically 3 elemental meteors. The first being frost, then electricity, then fire. Each one does massive damage and is a guaranteed combo effect. They combo everything in the area. They're very strong for boss fights just because it gets you the guaranteed combo hit, which are hard to get on any type of major boss because they usually clear their effect very easily. But oops. Well, as you saw, I did get my ultimate back, and another thing about the ult is that when you're in it, you cannot die. So it's a good way to bring your health back to full, your health and shield back to full, as well as not die when you're very close to you. As I died, I was trying to push the button so I wouldn't, but I didn't get it in time. I believe that's everything that I have for the storm. So I'll come back in with the Colossus in a second. Alright, so the Colossus is my main javelin when I played through using the most. It was the first one I got that I maxed out and is my favorite one to play for its overall strength and damage. It can sustain itself in a fight, and it can also use its abilities to get to fire into a fight. So damage and health overall are the highest things for this javelin. Yeah. Alright, so the Colossus is, man, I thought to myself I wasn't going to say that. Anyways, the Colossus is the biggest and, in my opinion, the strongest of the javelin, just because it has the health to stay in the fight. It can put out the damage to end the fight. I didn't see this on my way here. My Colossus is built pretty much for explosive damage and combo effects. So that turret might have taken some of the other javelin quite a bit of time to take down, or they would have had to use more technique. But the Colossus is built like for complete, like for brute strength. So, the biggest difference from the Colossus to the other ones, besides its the way that its attacks are built, is that it doesn't have a shield that constantly surrounds it and keeps it safe. It has this like physical shield, which can be used as a weapon, so it's actually pretty cool, and you can use the charge through enemies. But if something gets behind you or you're surrounded, the shield isn't much use to you, but it does allow you to run straight through enemies, knocking them down. So that's very useful, and then you can knock them over. So little enemies like these really don't stand a chance against the Colossus at all, which is my favorite part about it. You didn't have to spend time trying to shoot down and each and every little enemy. You just have the ability to run them over, kind of like a linebacker in football against, I don't know, I guess a smaller player in football. I don't really know football, but anyways, by Colossus, I use mostly use his shields and his abilities. I use his weapons. I don't use the weapons very much at all, but the weapons that I do use is a grenade launcher, which is an exclusive for the Titan, and this saw blade type weapon. I'm not really sure what it's called because I can't remember, but it like spins up, holds it, and then if I can find an enemy here, they're gonna really regret seeing me missed. Wow. But as you see, it just sits there, does damage. It's really good against bosses. If you can get it to hit on their critical point, it'll do damage over time. Continue to blow them up. Most things don't survive it. This guy was lucky, but not too lucky. Another cool thing with it is if you're flying around, you can also use the shield to fly through enemies, so you don't have to just be on the ground to swing it. My Colossus, it's probably my favorite part about this game, just because usually nothing gets through me. Even if I'm taking a bunch of damage like I was just then, it doesn't really matter because I can put the shield up and run through them and gather more. There's no freezing abilities with the Colossus though, and it kind of makes sense because freezing seems more like a precise thing for something to be able to do, and this like beast of a suit shouldn't really have that ability. I think it'd also be really overpowered if it could always freeze stuff. There is one specific armor piece that can freeze, but it's still rare to come by. You won't be able to build specifically for it like you would with the other suits. So this right here that I'm finding is is another version of the Colossus, but it's like the enemies version. So the enemies do also have their own javelin, and they're like the higher tier enemies of that faction. The scavengers, I think is what they're called, have the Colossus as theirs. The Colossus's combo ability detonates an explosion on that enemy, which also will detonate any other enemies that are also primed. So if you get a bunch of enemies that are primed in a small area, you can detonate all of them at once just by detonating one, which can be very useful against the bug type, the bug enemies, this isn't Pokemon, the bug enemies, which are, I think, called the Swarm, and there's a specific boss fight that the Titan really takes out all of the extra enemies that it brings in. But with that, I think that's all I have for the Colossus. So I'll come back in with the last one, the Interceptor, which, despite not being my main, was still one of my was probably my second favorite. Well, my favorite to play. My Colossus was still my main though. So I'll bring you back when I'm in with the Interceptor. Alright, so the final Javelin suit, last one to be showcased, is the Interceptor, which firstly I think is the coolest looking one, just because it kind of reminds me of it's the most similar to a human in that it's just very small, very thin looking armor. It's kind of like if you were to make this in real life, a stealth suit, so you wouldn't be running in head first but trying to get behind enemy lines, which is also seems to be kind of how it's built. It's very melee heavy because it's the only one that has a combo for its melee instead of like a one-hit damage type of thing. All right, the Interceptor. Put on the karate stance just because it is very fitting for how I use the suit. Firstly, it has the most jumps and most dodges, or at least you can chain a bunch of dodges together. I don't think you can. Yeah, you can't use them separately, but it still does work out just for getting out of a fight really fast. That's not an actual fight. But the Interceptor is very agile. Its melees chain together very well. And freezing effects are probably the best thing to get for this javelin because its combo effect puts out an aura from whatever detonation you have, and its melee does detonate. So if I freeze something detonated, I'll have an aura that freezes the enemies when they get close, making it easier for me to continue to melee enemies. So, like I said, you'll see freezing effects a lot on all of my javelin, and I think each one does have a freezing effect. And this one is similar to the Ranger, also has a poison effect because it applies a damage over time, which is also good for the Interceptor, being up close, damaging other enemies nearby while I focus down one. The weapons I use for this one is usually a machine pistol and a heavy pistol, but right now I have an assault rifle just to have the damage up. And I don't know what this is actually. I'll figure that out later as we play through the game. But it was my favorite one to play just because it's easy to get into a fight, do your damage, and get out and let your shields recover. I cannot find any enemies right now. So I might have to cut it and come back with enemies. Alright, so I found a mission, so I'll go ahead and try and do, or not try, but do this mission. Hopefully I won't die in this one like I have in the last few ones.
I'm seeing clear indications that a Shaper relic is nearby.
So there'll be these little missions in the free play, which I'm doing, that anyone can show up to do. There are other people here who are ready to do this mission. These are the only thing that I have issues fighting, because when they get close to an Interceptor, they close to your javelin, they'll explode. But the agility of this javelin still allows it to get away from them, so it's pretty good in that sense. While with the Colossus, I would have just ran straight into it and let it blow up on the shield because of the damage that the shield can absorb. Yeah, the Interceptor is just really, it's really fun to watch, for me to watch too while playing it. I generally don't use the weapon with this one either, so maybe that's something I'll try and do more in the full playthrough when that comes to the channel. So if something big forms, I'll be able to show off the ultimate ability, because this one can't just really be used against a bunch of small enemies. Well, it can be actually, so there's this little dance to start it up, or like, I guess focus in, and it is just a chain of melee attacks. It's compared to its normal melee attacks, it's a 5 combo compared to the normal 3. That sentence was a little messed up, but each one does more damage. It's a lightning strike or something. Each one does more damage than it normally would, as well as it being a faster combo that chains a little better. So I believe that Storm that is here is applying this lightning effect to the enemies. I was frozen for a while. Is applying this effect to the enemies, so it's allowing me to keep my aura going, which is the good thing about this game. It's highly cooperative, but it also is still easy to play by yourself. So when it first came out, I had a bunch of friends that I was playing with, but as more issues came up with the game, my friends stopped playing it. But I kept playing it because I still enjoyed the game a lot. So you saw I started getting mobs, so I jumped up, used my freeze ability to get that aura, to get them to calm down against me, and I was able to take those down easily, which is a big part of the Interceptor. And I was able to do this mission without dying. This is probably up close, keeping the health drops coming in. This little red thing right here is a health drop that comes from killing enemies. But with that, I think that's all I have for Anthem. So I'll bring you back in on Borderlands and show off more in that game. Alright, so this is Borderlands 3. This game is gonna go about the same way as the Anthem video did, where I'm gonna have you guys vote on which character you want to see me play through as. So I'll just load in each character. Each one is only one of them is level high enough to show off like their full ability. So I guess I'll start with this one. This is one that I used for my actual when I played the game just for fun by myself. Okay, so this is Mose, the Iron Bear soldier. Basically, her ability is Iron Bear, so she summons this robotic suit. So the choices for her class is that she will get to decide which weapon she carries on her suit. I usually use a flamethrower, which is down the minigun tree, and a rocket launcher down the grenade launcher tree. When I do my playthrough, I'll probably choose which tree I go down myself. If Iron Bear is the one that wins, then I'll switch and try and use the railgun or the bear claw just to try something different instead of playing it through essentially the same way I did the first time. Her suit, if I find some enemies here, the only major downside to her suit is that it doesn't fit through all the doorways, but it itself does massive damage. You can build it to where it can sustain itself in battle, so it becomes impossible to kill to a certain degree. Yeah, it's not hard to use at all. It's probably the easiest one to use just because it's essentially you playing the game but from the safety of a robot suit. It's really about all I have to say about her alone. So these enemies are just going to keep coming, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it here and go over to the next character. So the next character I'll be showing you is Fleck. He's the Beast Tamer. So he'll come in with he can come in one of three different pets, basically. Each one will do their own thing, and I'm not exactly sure which one does what, so I'll go over that in the video. Alright, so Fleck's skill trees consist of an action ability, and also a pet that he can take with him. So I believe that you can equip a different pet to the action ability. So the first pet is the Spider Ant, which regenerates health for Fleck over time, probably making it easier to sustain yourself in battle while alone, and then you can also send it off to fight a specific enemy. For the guard skag itself is going to increase the damage that Fleck can do, making it, well, I guess also easier to sustain yourself, but this way you can just do more damage and then probably pick up more heal drops from the enemies. And the Jabber, it carries its own pistol and it increases the movement speed of Fleck, but it also can shoot on its own, so I think it does more damage from a distance, and you don't have to command it to attack necessarily. It will just attack enemies over time. And it'll also throw barrels at the enemies, so that can also help in that way. With the last three, including Fleck, I don't really have much to show because I made them for the video. So if with a playthrough of those ones, it'd be completely new to me. This thing's weird, but yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump over to the siren. So I'm here with the siren now. All of the characters, by the way, also all the characters will have a shotgun. Well, all the characters that I started recently will have a shotgun, just because that's what the first boss drops for you. But the siren's abilities consist of these basically magic arms that she has, which I guess to say it shortly, sirens are just kind of like witches in this game. All of them are female, except for this game. In the story, there's a little bit of a twist on it. So with this portion, with this skill tree, the siren will send forward like an astral projection that does damage in a straight line in front of her. Um, yeah, so it just deals damage to enemies and anything else in its path. I'm sure if you're playing with a teammate, it won't damage them though. This one will grab an enemy and hold it in place, so you'll be able to just shoot it, and take it down faster instead of trying to aim at it while it's running all over the place. This will make it much easier in that sense. Um, and this is the slam. So like if you play Destiny or any other, like Mario also has it. It's basically a ground pound, but it'll send out like a shockwave for all the enemies in the area. So that one's pretty good when the enemies group up or you just have a lot of small enemies around you. Um, yeah, that's the astral projection. That was actually pretty cool. But that again is it. There's not much that I can show off for these last two, so I'll be jumping over to the stealth soldier. I think is what his title is called. All right, so the stealth soldier, I guess is what it's called, is the one that I've seen the least about. But when I was trying to level up just to see what it is and get a short little grasp of what I'll be talking about, he seems like actually the most interesting one to play. But no one ever plays him. I guess just because his overall health is low and he's not that special. His first ability that I chose is this drone that'll fly around. It's basically like it's kind of like Fleck's pets that they'll attack enemies around you, and I believe you can direct it to a specific enemy. Also, like if you're scoped in on something, it'll go and attack that. And then he has a few other abilities also. Another cool thing about him though is that he can equip two action skills compared to most who can only equip one. So he also has a clone of himself, which will distract enemies and take the damage off of your character itself, and instead put it on that clone, keeping you safe. And the clone also, I believe, does damage if I read it correctly. Um, so that means that you can put it down, it can do damage, and then you can focus on either higher target enemies while they're trying to kill the drone, or you can use it to keep yourself safe. So here, this one is. It's pretty cool, actually. I think this is a very interesting character. It has more to it than people made it seem online. And lastly is this shield that when you put it down and you shoot through it, it does extra damage. Oh, you can pick it back up too. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that kind of like lowers the cooldown for it, but it doesn't look like it does. But it is just a shield. When you shoot through it, it does extra damage. Um, so he has a lot of utility items. It's really helpful. I guess he'd be more helpful in like a team setting to pull the team together behind the shield and then put out the drone to take the damage off of the shield while you're doing extra damage behind it. Or put out the decoy to put out extra damage. But that's about it for Borderlands. And I'll be going to Stardew Valley, which will probably be far less exciting than these first two games, but it's still a game that I would like to put on the channel. So I'll see you there. Alright, so this is Stardew Valley. This game is comparable to Animal Crossing in a lot of ways. Just because it's like you're playing a game, you're doing chores, you're improving things on your own, finding new ways to make money, and you advance in a way like that. So the thing that is voted on in this game is that there are 4 or 5 different maps that you can have, and I'm going to be showing those off and putting them to you to pick which one you would like to see. Right now I'm loading the basic flat farm. It only has like 2 watering holes, and that's about it. This is also the game that, or the file that I played on the most. So I have just about everything. I'm really just trying to make money to discover more late game things. But what you get in your house, you can get a basement with cask to age certain products that you get. Um, the the girl who was in there that had blue hair is my wife in this game. We just adopted a baby, so there's a lot of stuff that you can do in this game past just farming. Over here, I have my furnace from when I mining. From when I went mining, I have these preserve jars which turn things into jelly or pickles. I have kegs which makes things into juice or wine. You can see that I have the this barn right here and a chicken coop to grow chickens, ducks, rabbits. I have dinosaurs too. I'll explain that when there's a full playthrough. Pigs and my animals are escaping. Goats, sheep, cows. There's a lot of things that you can get in this. You can get fishing wells. These creatures here help you to farm. Over here, there's a farm, not a farm, a slime den, basically. So you go inside. I don't have any slime right now because I killed them all for a quest. But you can regrow them with eggs, and then they'll just generate slime. But this is like the full extent, like the large, like I could grow this farm large if I wanted to, which I think I was gearing up to do once winter hits. There's not three, four growing. Well, there's 3 growing season, and then there's winter, and there's different crops for each one. Some crops are for more than one season, but most of them are only one season crops. Um, that's really about it for this one. It's just really generic, flat lands for the basic farm. Um, so I'll head over to the next one. All right, so the next farm that I'll show you is the river farm. So this one, I know that has like basically a river flowing through it, so it cuts it into a lot of different little islands. This is the basic house too, really small, not much going on in it. But it's just rivers cutting through, so you have a lot of little islands with a little bit of farmland on each one. So farming in itself would be harder on this map, but fishing is far easier. So you might want to do more fishing with this just to maximize it. And fishing also is a good way to bring in a little extra money while you're waiting for crops to grow. But in like the basic farm that I showed you first, it'd be harder to fish because the little water wells only give you trash, so there's nothing useful coming out of it. But I do believe fish will be coming out of these, so you can have your farm going in fish, making it easier to make money overall. Um, Besides that, it's just really showing off the map. So I'll be going over to, I believe the mountain farm is the one I'll be showing next, or hilltop, not mountain. So with the hilltop farm, I think I just called it a mountain farm because that's exactly what it reminds me of. And that portion of it looks really similar to that portion of the town, the mountain. So in this one, you have a lot less growing area, but um, well, less growing area and less space to do things overall. But there's this little mining space down here that you can use for um, getting or more resources, minerals and stuff. I'll try and get over there and show that a little better. So up here is resources that you get from mining usually. I believe these just regenerate over time, so it makes it easier to get like copper and geodes, which you can crack open from the blacksmith to get gems. Um, that's the only real special part. I believe these rivers also give fish, but I haven't tested that out just because these aren't the farms. This isn't the plot of land that I used at all, and I haven't watched anything on this game because I don't watch anything on games that I know that I would play. But with that, I'll go over to the forest farm, which I think, in my opinion, looks like the most difficult one, but I'll let you decide that. All right. So first of all, I like the way they did the wallpaper for this little farm. Kind of just shows off, like there's a little wreath there and just shows off more about what the farm is going to be. So the reason I say that the forest farm is probably more difficult is that you cannot use the area that has grass for your farm. So everywhere in here will not be able to grow crops, but it will grow trees naturally. So trees will never be an issue to get in this farm, but they also still have to grow. They also have to grow. So unless you get tree fertilizer, that can still take a while. And you can sell the wood for profit, but it's not as much as many of the crops will be by themselves. Um, there's also these hard stumps and hardened logs, which give you hardwood when broken. But you need to get your axe to a certain level. Most of these tools have an upgrade, except for the scythe, I believe. It doesn't really upgrade. You just get a new one of it later in the game. Um, and I believe these stumps will regrow by themselves, so you'll be able to get those every day once you get that upgraded axe, making hardwood another thing that you can sell. And also, it's hard to come by naturally. There's uh, an area somewhere else in the map, but you can only get about 12 hardwood from there a day. So, um, basically, lumber will be a big part of this farmland. But besides that, there's nothing much different to this one from the mountain. Just the fact that you can't grow on these on these grassy patches. And that's it for this one. There's one more plot, or I guess farmland that I have to show, and then that'll be it. All right. So this farmland is said to be dangerous at night. I haven't stayed on it long enough to see that, but based on like the boarded up window and these little, I guess they're like banners or heads. What is this? This is monster danglers. So yeah, there's probably a lot of monsters that come out at night on this farm, but it doesn't seem too different from any other farm. There's a little watering area. The land just needs to be cleared out and you can farm on it naturally. But I think not animal, monster drops will come easier on this farm, but it does also make it more dangerous to farm once the sun goes down. Uh, Otherwise, there's not much that is different with this one. There's a large water area, so I assume you can get fish from this too. It's not really clear because it's in the on the basic farm. I thought that you could get fish, but you couldn't, and going over things quickly to figure out or not figure out what I should be showing on my channel. But that's about it for this video. Make sure you like it, share with your friends, like as many comments on this as possible, just to figure out what exactly the people want. Well, what most of the people want to see. Follow me on Instagram at APGDarkness, and that'll be it for this one.